Alrighty trainers, TaeganAdventures here, and we are now nearing the end of 2019, and pushing us towards the end of 2019, we have our third member of the Swords of Justice, Virizion, taking over Terrakion in Tier 5 raids as the new legendary raid boss here in Pokemon Go. Like I just said, Virizion is a member of the Swords of Justice. It is a fighting type, just like the other two members of the Swords of Justice, Cobalion and Terrakion. Virizion has its own very unique typing of grass and flying, which we have only seen before on few Pokemon like Hoppip's entire line. Anyway, let's dive right into Virizion into Pokemon Go. So the first thing you might want to know about Virizion is stats and move pool. Virizion has the exact same stat distribution as Cobalion, so it is very tanky, very bulky, not very good on offense, so it's probably not going to be your best fighting or your best grass type attacker by any stretch of the imagination, given its very low attack. Plus there are very much better grass type attackers, better fighting type attackers out there than Virizion. Especially with the new move pool update and community day recently, I'm very sure Torterra, Venusaur, as well as Sceptile with Frenzy Plant far outclass Virizion. Virizion not very outstanding, and even on the move pool side of things, not very exciting as well. Quick Attack and Zen Headbutt as coverage fast moves. Leaf Blade, Close Combat, and Stone Age as charge moves. Now, Virizion is the only Swords of Justice member with a normal type fast move in Quick Attack, which normally, pun intended, you don't see very much on any Pokemon except maybe a normal type like Snorlax. Leaf Blade and Close Combat are of course your standard affair, stab, charge moves, and Stone Edge is actually a pretty good coverage move for flying type attackers that hit it super effective, 4 times super effective in fact. Alright, so before we begin on how to beat a Virizion in Tier 5 raids here in Pokemon Go, I think we all should prepare for some numbers here, like, what are the perfect IVCPs? So, in non-weather boosted conditions, which are any other weather apart from sunny and cloudy weather, the max CP will be 1727 for a 100% IV, and for a weather-boosted Virizion, which is in sunny or cloudy weather, it'll max out at around 2159, just under the 2500 limit for Ultra League. Unfortunately, you can't get a Virizion with a 1500 or under CP, so it is impossible for a Virizion to partake in the Great League, considering Virizion's move pool is kind of on the mediocre side, kind of on the crappier side to begin with. Virizion probably isn't worth your time pursuing if you want to use a Virizion in battle. Now that you know what to expect from a Virizion, it's probably not the best in terms of its battle prowess. Actually defeating a Virizion in Tier 5 raids in Pokemon Go is actually pretty easy if you have the right counters, the apt counters powered up to a sufficient level. So without further ado, let's go right into the counters, which really there are pretty few counters actually, although Virizion does have quite a few weaknesses here, being Psychic, Fairy, Fire, Poison, and Ice being its 2 times weaknesses, and flying being its 4 times weakness. With that out of the way, let's go over the recommended counters when facing a Virizion in Tier 5 raids in Pokemon Go. Now, because Virizion is 2.56 times weak to flying type attacks, your flying type attackers are probably going to be the most effective, and by far the flying type that packs the most punch here would be Moltres with Sky Attack. Now, because Moltres actually recently got Wing Attack, a Moltres with Wing Attack and Sky Attack would actually be your best bet here. It really does put in a lot of work, especially with that really high attack stat and DPS. Now coming in at a really close second, we have Honchkrow and Ho-Oh, both with really high attack stats, Ho-Oh having a very decent defense stat as well. But you really want to be careful of rock types when sending in these flying boys here. Moltres, Ho-Oh, and Honchkrow are all very weak to Stone Edge, so you really want to be very careful when sending in your burbs, in your flying types, in on a Virizion here because of Stone Edge, but nevertheless, flying types are always a great asset here when facing a Virizion, being 2.56 times weak to flying type attacks. Other flying types you may want to consider are Togekiss, which also gets the fairy type moves as well in Dazzling Gleam. Staraptor also gets Heat Wave as a form of coverage, but mainly you want to use a Brave Bird Staraptor here when going up against a Virizion because of that stab, 2.56 times super effective Brave Bird. It's gonna hit like a truck, even with that slightly lower attack stat than Moltres. Lugia. Of course, Lugia is known as the Great Wall for a reason. It is a very tanky boy here. Actually, Lugia is pretty much more of a sustained damage over time, the TDO side of things. But still, Lugia does pretty respectable DPS, especially with that Sky Attack, the God Bird move itself. It does a very, very, very respectable amount here. Now, for the fire types, you really only have a few fire types to select from here, especially considering that Virizion does get Stone Edge to hit the fire types super effectively. So on the top of my recommendations would be Blaziken, because it is neutral against Stone Edge here, especially with the Blast Burn move. The Community Day move for Blaziken is a freaking beast, because it's super effective here and does quite a significant bit of damage, especially considering Blaziken's attack stat of 186 at level 30 max attack IVs. Heatran takes resisted hits from Stone Edge, but does take super effective from fighting type moves like close combat off of Virizion, so you might want to be careful when sending in your Heatran, but Heatran nonetheless is a very, 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 very good counter and is a good substitute for a Blaze Kick Blaziken. Just another word of caution, and I reiterate, be sure to send in your Heatrans with caution, because it does take super effective from close combat. And speaking of close combat, Chandelure has a very important immunity to close combat here. Being a ghost type, it can sponge up a close combat very, very safely and hit back with a fire type move in Fire Spin and Overheat. And last but not least, let's give a shout out to all our Psychic and Fairy type counters here. Especially shout out to the man, the legend, Mewtwo himself, for having the Side Strike move added onto its move pool. A very powerful, very exclusive charge move on Mewtwo. So Side Strike and Sidekick on Mewtwo, definitely going to put in the work on a Virizion. It's just a pretty awesome, pretty hyped up legendary. You know who it is. The legend Mewtwo. And speaking of legends, Latios, also a very good legendary to send in on a Virizion here. Especially resisting Virizion's grass type moves, Latios is sure to just sponge up a lot of hits, being very bulky and very offensive himself. Now, if you don't have a Mewtwo, Alakazam would also make a very good substitute. Having access to Future Sight and Psychic as a legacy move, Alakazam is basically Mewtwo's younger brother in a sense. You know, it doesn't hit as hard as a Mewtwo. It doesn't have probably the amazing stats that a Mewtwo has, but it is still very, very great, especially if you don't have a Side Strike Mewtwo, or even a decently powered up Mewtwo for that matter. Alakazam can still make a pretty darn good Psychic type attacker. And speaking of Psychic type attackers that we very, very recently got thanks to Community Day, we have Gardevoir and Gallade, both with the new and improved Psychic as its charge move. Now, Psychic actually overtakes Synchronoise as Gardevoir and Gallade's Psychic type charge move. Because of the buff to Psychic in recent times, Psychic is actually more preferred over Synchronoise when it comes to Gardevoir and Gallade. But if you really want to stick to your guns, probably go for a Dazzling Gleam Gardevoir, because that is going to really put in the work here. And of course, how can I not mention Espeon, the evolution of Eevee, one of the featured Community Day mons that we recently got thanks to Community Day a few days ago. Most of you probably would be running Last Resort on your Espeon, especially if you evolved your Eevee during Community Day hours. But in this case, you'd rather have an Espeon with Confusion and Future Sight, two Psychic type moves that benefit from Stab, and a super effective on Virizion here. So Espeon is pretty much a budget Alakazam. So yeah, that was great, but still pretty darn good. Lastly, we have the Metagross here with the Zen Headbutt and Psychic. You may also want to experiment with Bullet Punch, although it's not super effective. It still does a pretty decent amount, very on par with Gardevoir in terms of DPS, probably on par with like Alakazam as well. Yeah, pretty budgety, pretty meh, I would say. If you attended Community Day, Build'em Community Day, you should already have a Meteor Mash Metagross. But if you want to unlock the second charge move just for Psychic, you can. Although Meteor Mash is actually pretty mediocre when sending it in on the Virizion here, so you might want to prioritize your other Psychic types instead. Psychic Metagross. Alright, so I'm just stitching this part onto the video because I forgot to mention this in the video itself. But you want to battle Virizion in either sunny, cloudy, or snowy weather, because sunny weather boosts the fire type's damage output, and also weather boosts Virizion, so you can actually get a weather boosted Virizion. Cloudy weather boosts the fairy type's damage output and also allows you to get a weather boosted Virizion. Snowy weather boosts the ice type moves here, but you're not really gonna use the ice type moves, are you? The windy weather actually boosts the flying type moves here. This is gonna be the main one. If you're lucky enough to live in an area with a very windy weather, or at least windy weather in game, then yeah, definitely bring out your flying types, your Moltres, your Lugias, Ho-Ohs, and the like, especially in the windy weather, because it is going to do a lot of damage. Like I already said, if you want to use a Virizion in battle, perhaps in a PvP setting, unfortunately, Virizion's move pool really ties it down here. Like I said at the beginning of this video here, Virizion doesn't have the best move pool. Its stats are also pretty meh. The defenses kind of like their Virizion stats are in a pretty awkward position here. Like, it is supposed to be defensive, I get it, but it's trying to be offensive, well, on the attacking side, but still kind of isn't good enough to be a sweeper. So it's kind of in a very awkward position where it's theoretically usable, but its moves and its stats are kind of like weighing it down here. So for now, Virizion is unusable even in the lower tiers. In any sort of battle scenario, Virizion is unusable, basically. Really nothing much to say here about Virizion's battle prowess. It's unspectacular. So yeah, this video is basically a very one-stop guide to Virizion in Pokemon Go. If you have any more further questions or corrections, perhaps, leave them down in the comments. I'll be sure to read as many comments as I can and answer to as many doubts from you guys as possible. So yeah, this has been TaeganAdventures. You have just watched one of my raid guide videos, and I shall see you in the next one. Peace out.